Hello again, and welcome to the Death Row and Executions channel. First, I want to thank everyone for all the really nice comments about the videos I've done here, such as these two from Alan Hermes and Tracy Hoyle. Thank you for that. I would also like to respond to a comment from a young woman named Air, who has a channel here called Death Row Executions. Yes, the channel names are similar, but that wasn't intentional. When I first began preparing to create this channel, I came up with the name Death Row and Upcoming Executions, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought that it just looked too long, and I decided to cut it back a bit. Then I ran a search on YouTube to see how many others might be using that name, and that's when I saw Air's channel, and I watched a few of her videos. While the channel names are similar, the format of the videos seem a bit different. Air's videos appear more like a mini documentary, whereas I try to create a video that might be more like a news report. But I must say that Air's videos are very interesting and very well done. Great job with images and editing, and I invite everyone who hasn't seen them to have a look. About the comments, I was not happy about the racist comments being made on my videos. Now, I'm a big believer in freedom of speech, so I'm not going to start deleting comments. But I also left them there because I want people to see how stupid you look when you write something like all blacks should be executed, or whatever it was. Now, I would like to ask everyone to please not reply with anger to those comments, because that's what the person wants. These racist idiots want to get you all riled up and write a bunch of replies to their comment. They get a thrill out of that. So the best way to make them miserable is to completely ignore it. Anyway, the last time I looked, those comments had mostly disappeared, so maybe somebody reported them and YouTube took them down, which is fine. Lastly, I see that there were comments from some of you that like the screaming effect in the intro at the beginning of the video, and some of you who do not like the screams. So I've decided to compromise and lowered the volume of the screaming man effect to about halfway. Speaking of Death Row, this guy is now headed there. Some of you might have seen this recently in the news. William George Davis was sentenced to death this past October the 20th in Texas. He was a hospital nurse there who was convicted of having killed 4 heart patients by injecting air into the patient's arterial systems. A hospital nurse killing the patients. Anyway, I believe the average time for an inmate on death row in Texas is about, 12 to 15 years. So hopefully I'll have a video of his upcoming execution here on YouTube about 15 years from now. Well, I was all set to do my next video on this guy right here. His name is Kasul Chantakaman, who was scheduled to be put to death in Texas on November the 3rd, but a last-minute appeal has now pushed his date to August the 17th of next year, 2022. Chantakaman, whose family is from the country of Laos, but he was born here in the United States, was convicted of robbing and stabbing to death a real estate broker in Texas. Actually, if you want to know all the details of this crime, there is an episode of Forensic Files. I'm sure many of you have heard of this show, called House Hunting. The episode is called House Hunting, that covers the crime completely. The Film Rise Network, who owns the copyrights to Forensic Files, has a channel here on YouTube, and so you can watch it here by searching for it. It is from season 13, episode 2. Or you can also see it on Netflix if you want to watch it without commercials. Netflix has the Forensic Files episode listed in collections, and the house hunting episode can be found in collection 7. So, jumping to the next scheduled execution on the list is David Neal Cox, who is currently on death row in the state of Mississippi. David Cox was born in November of 1970. He is now 51 years old. His execution by lethal injection is scheduled for Wednesday, November 17th, for murder he committed in the year 2010. Mississippi hasn't executed anyone for 9 years, since June of the year 2012. Actually, Mississippi executed 3 men that month. 1 black death row inmate and 2 whites. 2012 is also the year that David Cox pleaded guilty to the charges of killing his wife Kim 2 years earlier in 2010. David Cox shot his estranged wife twice, and while she lay bleeding, he sexually assaulted his 12-year-old stepdaughter right in front, right beside the little girl's dying mother. There was also a 7-year-old boy, the girl's brother, present in the home. This all happened at the home of Kim's sister, the victim Kim, to where Kim had fled when she learned that David Cox had recently bonded out of jail and had made threats that he was coming after her. Let's take this back a little further in time. When David Cox met Kim Kirk several years before the murder, she was the single mother of 2 girls. Both David and Kim were born the same year, 1970, and were both in their 30s at the time that they met. They married and later had 2 boys together. Now, witnesses at the trial had described David Cox as a very charming man during that time period. However, that changed when he began abusing drugs, such as painkillers and meth. It was reported that sometime around the year 2005 or 2006, David Cox began sexually molesting Kim Cox's daughter, his stepdaughter, who was 7 or 8 years old at the time, depending on the year that it began. Several years later, in the year 2009, Kim's daughter, who was now 11 years old, told her mother that David Cox had been raping her. So Kim and David separated after that, and Kim notified authorities. When authorities arrived at the home, they found chemicals used to make meth, so he was arrested and charged with possession and statutory rape. David Cox was then sent to the Pontotoc County Penitentiary in Mississippi. His bond was set at $200,000. While in jail, David Cox frequently told other inmates that when he gets out, he is going to kill Kim for having him incarcerated. Prosecutors in Mississippi were unable to get the rape charges to stick without enough proof other than the word of the girl. And in April of 2010, a month before the murder, his bond was lowered to an amount that allowed David Cox's sister the means to bond him out of jail. When Kim learned of her husband's release, she became worried about the safety to herself and her children. She requested a protection order from the courts, and it was granted to her. She also fled to her sister Christy's home in Sherman, Mississippi, with the kids. On May 14 of 2010, on his way home from work, David Cox stopped to purchase a gun. He then borrowed his sister's van and on that same day went to the home of Kim's sister, Christy. He then proceeded to shoot his way into the house. Kim's sister, Christy, was in the house, but Kim told her to hurry and run and get out. Christy escaped from the home. She went outside and soon after heard 2 more gunshots. It was later reported that Kim was shot once in the arm and once in the stomach. Christy notified authorities. They arrived, and negotiators began speaking with David Cox on the phone as he held the children hostage for about the next 10 hours. News reports during the time that this was happening were calling it a house of horrors. Sometime after midnight, while Kim lay dying, Cox sexually assaulted her daughter in the mother's presence on 3 separate occasions. Reports in the case file stated that Kim Cox was still alive during the sexual assault and that David Cox was taunting. He was taunting his wife at the same time that the rapes were occurring. One report stated that David Cox forced his wife to watch him ejaculate into the girl's mouth. During phone calls with hostage negotiators, David Cox had said that if authorities entered the house, he will shoot the young girl in the head. When the negotiator asked David Cox to please allow them to remove Kim Cox from the house for medical treatment, Cox refused, saying he wanted to watch his wife die. Finally, about 3:30 in the morning, a SWAT team entered the house and David Cox was taken into custody. Kim was found dead, having bled out as a result of the abdominal gunshot wound. If you are interested in these videos about the next scheduled execution to take place here in the United States, please subscribe to this channel so that you are alerted when the next one comes out. I'm Paco Rivera. Bye for now.